Hey everyone, Warwick's here. We're back with another Season 1 Mythic Plus dungeon guide. I believe this is the last one that I'm recording, so it'll probably be the last one posted as well. If not, go check out the whole other playlist. But this is Magister's Terrace, which is a revamped dungeon making its way back. They've completely overhauled how this dungeon works from the old Magister's Terrace from TBC. So if you want to experience the original version, go play TBC Classic. If you want to experience this version, well, you're in the right place for this. So this dungeon, I think, is going to be the one dungeon that I think ends up being the most hated, at least for me. This is the one that I'm the least looking forward to doing in Season 1. I'm not looking forward to Seed of Triumvirate either, but this one is one that I'm definitely not looking forward to, and there's a couple of reasons for it. I don't really like the way the bosses go, and I kind of hate the way this dungeon is laid out, and some of the trash density in certain places is a little bit too much. So let's take a look at the routing and pathing, and then we'll take a look at some footage of how these bosses are functioning. And as always with these videos, these are just kind of what we've seen from the early beta and early season stuff. These are things that will help you get started, but they are not guides for what you're going to be doing, say, a month into the season or 2 months into the season. And we've gotten a lot more experience, and a lot of people have been able to limit test as well as kind of lab some other things that maybe we didn't know about early on. And then new strategies and things like that will always appear out of nowhere. So let's take a look at this dungeon. This dungeon is kind of going to be potentially confusing. As it looks on MDT, it's kind of difficult to understand, but like this area you come back to twice, but it's placed in two different areas so that you can see all the trash and stuff like that for route planning. All right. So the first area, you're going to fight this Arcane Sentry plus some Magisters and Enforcers. You want to make sure that the Magisters who just have a standard bolt cast, and then the Sentry is just kind of your big hit point sponge mob. It's then going to take you, instead of going through this way, which is what it looks like going into this room, you'll have to take a side path where you'll fight off these healers. Obviously the Light Ward Healer, it's in their name, they heal, along with these Magisters and animated codexes, which are just kind of there. And it leads you into this little library area. So as you can see, the Arcane Empowerment, this is a tome that you'll actually grab. There might be routes later on that will allow you to grab this so that you can do that. But I know for beginner routes where you're just trying to get this stuff done, you're not going to want to do that. And obviously you have this Vigilant Librarian that you're probably going to have to kill on top of that. So I'm sure there'll be routes that'll incorporate including this. For the purposes of a very standard beginner route, I'm not going to incorporate it. But as you get higher in keys, that 30-minute haste buff is probably going to be extremely valuable. Now, the one thing to note about this library area is that there are going to be circles that if you get touched by them, it'll send you back up here to the beginning. And then you want to grab every mob that you can, all these books, and then grab this Blazing Pyromancer. Once you kill them, all of the little sentry stuff goes away, and you're allowed to channel onto an orb that will open up the path that will lead you into the first area, coming from this side. So obviously another Light Ward Healer, you just want to make sure that you are kicking the heal on that. The other one is the Spellwoven Familiar and this Magister. So there's a couple of kicks that are in this pack along with this Arcane Sentry. And that brings you into the first boss room. Now, on lower keys, you're only going to need to clear the one side with the Blazing Pyromancers, Magisters, things like that. It is possible on higher keys you'll need to clear out both sides, in which case you'll adjust trash that you pull at the end of the dungeon to compensate for that. But on lower keys, and what we did on a 10, we only needed the one side for Arcanotron Custos. He's a pretty easy first boss. Potential for this boss to go drastically wrong if you don't manage space well. But if you manage space well, then you're going to be in a fine position. So let's take a look at Custos here. And as you can see, as we're getting ready to pull him here, I'm pulling him over into this corner. And there's a couple of different reasons for that. You can see on the timeline this repulsing slam. So it's going to be your standard tank gets knocked back, big button type thing. So you can see, once I remembered that that was a thing, I positioned him a little bit more into the corner. This Arcane Expulsion comes out. As you can see, it's a cast you can't interrupt, and he basically slams down on me and leaves a puddle on the ground that I have to get my way out of. So this is another boss, much like every other boss that we're seeing across the board. A lot of like puddles on the ground, space denial type stuff, where positioning is going to factor so importantly into how you handle this. So I kind of pull him around that corner and pull him into this corner again to try and limit the amount of space that we get removed. Here's the Arcane Expulsion, boom, onto me again, and I just gently pull him down the wall while trying to keep my back as tight to the wall as I can so that when we get there. Now, there's a refueling protocol. It's kind of like his intermission phase where you can see these orbs spawn and start drifting their way towards him. You're going to want to grab these, and every time you grab one, it leaves behind a puddle on the ground. So There's going to be strategies, I'm sure, that will eventually be learned to make it so that you either grab these as early as you can, or you grab them as late as you can, so that you are limiting the amount of space that you're cutting off with all the puddles that get there. So again, another repulsing slam. I didn't pay attention, and I'm going to get knocked way back here to the point that I almost pulled the other side of the other group here. But I get back into position for the arcane expulsion, but that's really the fight. So you deal with the expulsion, you deal with the big tank slam, and you kind of try to position this boss accordingly so that you're limiting your floor space. And then when he goes, when he's drained of energy, because he starts at 100 and you can see he's losing energy slowly, but then each of these like repulsing slams drain his energy by a bigger chunk of an amount. So you're on a timer, and I think it's like roughly every minute he'll swap between these two phases. So if you're a 1 minute cooldown, you definitely can use your cooldowns early. If you're a 2 minute, you're going to have it basically every other phase. Here's another refueling protocol. Now the thing about these orbs is that you kind of can't control, as far as I can tell, where they're coming from. So you just kind of have to adjust to them. I've seen some runs where like they're tanking the boss up here and the orbs spawn basically right where I'm standing. And it's a little unfortunate, but it is what it is. But Custos, very, very simple boss. As long as you are managing your space well and you do your orb soaking well, you'll keep your space quite limited. All right, so you go behind him, you'll grab this Spellbreaker into some couple of dual Sunblade Enforcers. Now these Spellbreakers are hit point sponges. You can see it plus 10 on a Tyrannical. They're at 5.49 million health. On Fortified, they'll have even more than that. And that's going to lead us into the Serenal Sunlash room. Now, I will say on MGT, this is not how this room looks. It looks like this section here. But for the purposes of MDT and again showing mobs, because you backtrack out of this room once you're done with it, they added what makes it look like a separate wing, and it's not. You come in this side first, we're gonna grab these Magisters, Lightward Healers, and then again another Spellbreaker. So all mobs you fought before. With a double Spellbreaker right here before the end boss, this trash pack is gross. Because these Spellbreakers are so hit point spongy. But that's going to lead you into fighting Serenal Sunlash. Now, this is a boss that the first time I did it, I had no clue what was going on. I'll be honest. Luckily, I've done it on a couple of different key levels now, and I was able to get some experience. So I'm better understanding what's going on and kind of just limit testing things as what you do on the beta. So you just kind of test things. If you can read the dungeon journal, but until you actually experience it, sometimes you're just not going to get what you want. Now, Sunlash is a boss that I think you could burn hero on if you have it up by this time. Obviously, you can see in this run, we did not have it up in time. And we're going to pull this boss here. As you can see, we're going to grab this, and then this boss is immediately going to run, mainly because I think someone was standing too close and you social pulled him, even though our Mistweaver was very low on mana when this pull starts. So let's take a look. All right, so we're trying to get a mana, and then boom, here he is. So we probably should have moved out of this room a little bit more, and I was a little slow to react to it, so sorry, warrior. But as you can see, I get him into the middle of the room, and he's going to do this runic mark, as you can see, onto two people. And the goal here is just kind of get this away from the group before it explodes. Now, there's a timer on it. You can see our warrior does a good job of kind of timing it. And then he's going to put down this suppression zone. Now, if you stand inside this suppression zone, as you can see, silenced. But one thing to remove the mark is you take the runic mark inside the zone to do it. Now, once you remove the mark, you do group-wide damage. So both of you can't go in there at the same time, and otherwise you run the risk of doing massive damage that can't be recovered by your party. So you want to kind of stagger that. All right, and you can see he puts more runic marks down on everyone, and then he's going to do this wave of silence ability that comes out. Now, this initially, what happens is that as he channels it, and it's like a 3-second cast, you see what I do. I go stand inside the silent circle. Because if you're not standing inside of it, you'll get silenced for like 7 or 8 seconds, which as a caster and a healer, obviously signifies death. But even some melee will be affected by this because they have some things that are considered melee abilities and some things that are considered casted abilities. So you can see 2 more runic marks go out, and you just kind of need to defensive these or just play with them until the suppression zones go down, in which case you'll have one person go in and then the other person go in. So in groups that communicate, you're going to want to do that. And as you can see, every time the mark gets broken, there's 3 puddles to go down on the ground, so you just avoid those. But that's this fight. As long as you manage your runic marks and don't overload your healer with them, and then on the wave of silence, everyone stands inside of the suppression zone so that you don't get silenced for long term. This boss is going to be really straightforward, really easy to kill, I think, overall, but I do think he's a prime hero candidate if you're not using it on Custos. just because things can get out of hand with the runic marks and things stacking up and such. So, but once you kill him, you're going to go back up onto this platform, as you can see on the back left section here, and you're going to channel that orb. And what that does is that unlocks the room, but activates a gauntlet style thing that you're going to do. So that's what this side of the room here is for. So you're going to grab these voidlings, these hollow soul shredders, which have, I think it's one cast that's very easy to kick, and then these dreaded void walkers, you're going to want to go stack on top of them. And this pull, you definitely want to pull all of them, because these little voidlings will continue to trek down the hallway until the void walker is killed. And then you have another set of voidlings to go out after that. And then once you exit, you're going to come right back out here, and you're going to be working your way towards Gamelius. Now, this boss is still something that I'll admit I'm still learning good mechanics for. We kind of strong armed this and brute forced it when we did it in this dungeon that I'll show you. But I'm pretty sure there's other strategies to this boss that, you know, will be uncovered as time goes on. But I just kind of want to show you what happens. So with the trash clear, the big thing you want to watch out for, these void callers. They have a big cast that you're going to want to make sure that you interrupt. And then these void infusers also will have a cast that you want to make sure that you interrupt. So those are your kind of big kick priority targets. This area is going to be very flexible with trash count, because some of these things are very easy to kill off. Some of these you can accidentally butt pull them. So if you accidentally like pull this pack, you just will ignore a pack in the tower working your way up. Devouring Tyrant is the other big one here that you want to make sure that you keep an eye on. It does have another big cast, and it's a huge hit point sponge. Like I said, 5.49 million versus about 2 million, so it's double the health of everything around it. So those mobs, you know, you're going to want to prio off of those mobs. So you're going to clear your trash, but none of this stuff is like super difficult. You just want to watch the void infusers and make sure that you're kicking them. And then just be mindful of your positioning through this, because it's very easy to pull extra mobs without the tank being ready or aware. And that's going to bring us to Gamelius. This boss is the drizzling shits, in my opinion. I hate this boss. He's not the worst boss, but he's in high competition, in my view, for being the worst boss. Mainly because his mechanics aren't exactly clear, and what you do with them aren't exactly clear. And I never like that. Even after reading the dungeon journal, I'm still not, like I said, I'm still not 100% sure what I'm doing with this boss. And to me, that's a problem. But let's look at the footage. Let's see if maybe we can figure it out. And if you spot anything that I don't know about this boss, please put them in the comments below. Again, we're here to learn and give everyone an opportunity to kind of be more prepared going into the Mythic Plus season. So yeah, if there's anything strat-wise that I'm missing on this one, I'm actually asking. Please put that in the comments so that I can be better prepared and, you know, share that knowledge with everyone else. So as we pull this boss, as you can see the giant jellyfish, you can see he's going to do this ability called, oh wow, he meleeed me hard. He's going to do this ability called Triplicate, where he's going to make copies of himself that just kind of float around the room. Don't know what that was. So as you can see, we're kind of cleaving off of these copies, doing our best with them, but they kind of just go off in their own direction. So I just kind of pick one and try to kite this boss around to sticking onto one the entire time, because he does Neuralink them. And you can see he gets the shield on this one, and the shield is on this one on the left. So you want to really be focusing this one here that doesn't have the shield and burn through it, so that way you can get rid of the shield off of the other two. This Astral Drass, obviously you want to make sure that you're not standing inside of it when you're there, and he's going to be pulling everyone except the tank towards one of his copies, either his main brain or his side brains, and go from there. Now we get a nice little overlap here with this cosmic sting that's going out. Just one target gets picked, and it's going to leave, you know, stuff on the floor. So this is the one thing with space denial, so you can start in the middle and try to move this around, or put it on the edge if you can make copies of it and make note of it. It just kind of depends on how prepared you are to be like ready with it. So I kind of spend my whole time just following this one copy, and then of course he makes a couple of other copies of himself. Here's another grass. As you can see, now there's like 5 copies of himself, so everyone's getting pulled now. And I don't know if like killing these mobs removes the number of copies that you have. It was kind of hard to tell. Like this boss went very sideways for us. But then the ones that have the shields, you want to make sure that you're either burning the shields off or doing whatever you can to neutralize them. So it's kind of, like I said, it's all kind of confusing, and in a high key, it's going to be really, really difficult. I think this boss needs a little bit better signaling on what it does. I think the the warnings that like Blizzard gives on its, you know, its version of DBM, so to speak, are there. And you can see I try to line myself up to where the arrow for that was coming off of me hits the one that has the shield on it, but go from there. But like I said, if you know any other strategies for this boss that are better than what we did, please let me know, because I feel like what I did was like fine, but like I said, I feel like in a lot of ways we brute forced this boss simply because we had the gear to do so. As you're working your way up, I'm worried about what that's going to look like. Now, luckily, the little poison circles that get left on the ground aren't permanent. They do go away after a while. And that's always a pleasant experience. You want to make sure that, you know, that you're doing that. But yeah, definitely let me know, because this is kind of a brute force strategy that I am not 100% sure worked, but as effectively as it could, and I'm sure there's ways for this boss to get there. But yeah, this boss, Blizzard, if you're watching, please update the boss timers on it and the warnings on it, so that it kind of is a little bit more clear what you should do on this boss, because I think this is the most unclear boss the first few times you do it, until someone that is way smarter than me figures it out and explains it to me, which is why I'm asking for it in the comments. Okay, after you defeat Gemellis, you're then going to go into the tower, where there's a couple of mobs that you want to be on the lookout for, but the main one that I want to point out is this Void Infuser. I think it's the Void Infuser, or is it the... Oh, it's this dreaded... I think it's the Infuser, yeah. I think it's the Infuser or the Void Torrent. One of these mobs has a fear kick that if you pull multiple of them, you're going to have to kick multiple fears, and unless you're in an organized group, it's going to be really hard. But you're basically going to climb this tower, killing these mobs as you go, trying to get the last of your count. This is a pull that's completely optional if you skip it. With the Devouring Tyrants and the Shadow Void Callers, just to make sure you're watching any kicks for them. And then you're going to get up to this last boss, which is the Genitress, which I think is going to be a boss that is going to give people fits the entire season. Alright, but this tower area, be very careful. It does a lot of damage. Like, there's a chance that you're going to have to, like, allow your gear to catch up and potentially drink while you're doing this. And then as you climb the tower, like, I chose to go here because of the count purposes, but if you just do this little thing with the Void Infusions and stuff like that and go around, because you come up here and then you come around to go up, and then you go up, and then you come up right here to where the Genitress is. I know it looks confusing on the map, but... Alright. The Genitress is a boss, like I said, I think it's going to give people absolute fits. I think that it's going to be a boss that many people are going to strongly dislike, even once they figure it out, simply because he has so much going on. That it's going to be quite confusing. And in this footage, I don't play this as clean as I should have. And I'm sure there's positioning things that we could do, that this group could have done to make it a little bit easier on ourselves. Like, I think the tank and healer should probably be, you know, a group that's together. But in this case, our healer, I think, was hanging out with our DK, I think, on this one. I don't know where he was at, but I'll show you the footage and you'll see what I mean. Alright, so as you jump in here with the Genitress, you'll notice that what he's going to do is this hulking fragment. Now, I get this run out, but what it does is it will actually drop something on it when it explodes a second time. Now, I leaped back in too early because it does space denial and it does this. Now, you notice that all four of these pillars light up and channel into the Genitress himself, basically cutting the area off into 4 quadrants, and there's this circle that goes down. Now, you have these orbs that come out from you when you do this, but if this circle that you see at the top of the screen right now hits the ground, it's a one-shot. All right, at least on 10 it was one-shotting us. I'm sure on higher keys it would continue to one-shot you. You can see, you can see what happens with the space denial that I did, where I like I said, I completely screwed up the play on this. I mean, it does go away. I'm having to stand inside this. Luckily, I'm a tank. I can deal with it, and I had Fiery Brand going. But if that thing hits the ground, then you're just kind of screwed. So it's important to split your group up and make sure that you're in these quadrants while also still trying to remain in range of your healer. I already know as a Pres Evoker, I'm going to absolutely loathe this fight because of the range issues that we have. But you can see we keep the star bouncing around. We just want to make sure that you avoid the orbs. As a tank, you want to make sure that you're getting out. I think here I finally kind of play it correctly, where boom, out, and then I'm back in. Now the good thing is I don't think this boss has any sort of thing where if you're not in melee range, he like does this big thing that hurts everyone. he just kind of stands there and potentially whacks melee on someone else, but like I didn't see it happen in this case, so I don't know if it works or not. Again, that'll require more testing, but this boss, definitely a hero candidate. I don't know what happened with that Fellblade. Like I hit Fellblade onto the boss and it charged me to the pillar, which as you can see stuns if you run into it. So yeah. So this boss is very strange. Some of its mechanics overlap in a really crushing ways, and I hate this aspect of it. And again, see, I went in way too early. I was very frustrated with myself by this point. So the Degenetrix is one of those bosses that I think people are going to absolutely hate this boss, and I think future changes to this boss are probably still going to come in. It's just a matter of when. Oh, I took that orb like an idiot. Luckily, our Mistweaver did a good job of keeping me alive. So this boss, I think, is going to be one of the prime candidates early on to see nerfs once the general population starts to do this boss. Even on Mythic 0, I think it'll see nerfs because I think this boss is going to be the reason that this key bricks a ton. Now, it wasn't for us in this case. 26 deaths. We had way more issues. But this boss is going to destroy keys. You're going to get to the end of a run and this boss is just going to do some stupid shit and it's going to kill you. But yeah. So overall, I think Magister's Terrace is probably set up right now to be the hardest dungeon in Season 1 of Mythic Plus. I could be wrong on that. Like I said, I think Algathar will be by far the easiest, but I think Magister's Terrace will probably be a key level, maybe even 2 key levels below everyone else at this point, mainly just because of how hard the last boss is and how hard the last 2 bosses are, really, and just how ridiculous some of the trash in this dungeon is. I think this dungeon is the prime candidate after like 1 or 2 weeks of the season being active in early April when they start making some dungeon passes. I think this dungeon is going to be a prime candidate to see nerfs across the board. I just think there's a lot going on in this dungeon that still needs to be tuned that they haven't touched yet, and at this point they're not going to because early access, as I record this, is in 24 hours. So, but yeah, again, if you have any strats for the third boss, Gamelius, that I think that I was missing or just something that I was not understanding on that boss, please let me know in the comments below. Educate us all so that we can all be better prepared to face that boss in this dungeon. But yeah, Magister's Terrace, leader in the clubhouse right now for me for being the hardest dungeon this season and most people's least favorite, even as a result of that. But we shall see. Season starts on March 24th. If you want to see me streaming all my Mythic Plus adventures, definitely follow me at twitch.tv/warxttv or follow this YouTube and subscribe to this YouTube channel where I multi-stream on both platforms. And keep an eye out. Obviously, I've got my spec guides. I've got my now dungeon guides, all that are out as we get ready to kick off the season. I'll be streaming my raid progress with my current team on Demon Hunter mostly, but I'll be playing a lot of Evoker on the side as well. And as other news comes out, as we get nerfs or news posts and things like that, I'll try to be doing that. And I'm in the midst of, as this releases, I'm probably taking a little break from content creation because making 14 videos in the span of like a week is quite an endeavor. It's mentally draining. So I'm probably taking a little break from making content, but I have a lot of stuff obviously that's released onto the channel. And I've got a big plan for the future of the channel that I'll explain more. I've posted some of the plans on my Blue Sky account, but I also will make a YouTube community post explaining what my plans are as we move into April, May, and then into the summer of June. So definitely follow and follow me, subscribe to me, comment, like, share, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. The entire playlist of the Mythic Plus Dungeon series is there. If you found these guides helpful, grab the playlist link, share it with your guilds, encourage people to watch the videos, give it some support. That way they know what they can do to be prepared for Season 1 of Mythic Plus as well. Until the next video, hope you all stay safe, hope you enjoy yourself, you're having fun, you keep on gaming. We will see you next time.